When your child explodes over something tiny, it may not be defiance. It may not be disrespect. It may be fear with nowhere to go. That angry voice, that slammed door, that leave me alone. Sometimes it isn't power. Sometimes it's panic, wearing armor. And if you only respond to the anger, you may miss the child underneath it asking for help in the hardest way possible. This is one of the most painful traps in modern parenting, because anger is loud. Anger is dramatic. Anger gets your attention fast. It feels rude. It feels aggressive. It feels personal. It hits your nervous system like a threat. So you react to the tone, the attitude, the eye roll, the shouting, the way they speak to you. And in that moment, it looks obvious. This child is angry, but very often, anger is not the first feeling. It's the second one. Sometimes even the third. Under it, there may be anxiety, shame, embarrassment, overwhelm, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being exposed, fear of not being enough. But anger gets there first because anger feels stronger. Anxiety feels vulnerable. Anger feels protected. That matters more than most parents realize. Because once a child learns that fear makes them feel small, helpless, or out of control, they may stop showing fear at all. Not because it's gone, because anger does a better job of hiding it. And suddenly, the child who looks oppositional may actually be frightened. The child who looks dramatic may actually be overloaded. The child who seems impossible to reach may be trying desperately not to fall apart. This is why so many good parents feel confused. They think, if my child is anxious, shouldn't they look worried? Shouldn't they seem clingy? Quiet? Tearful? Nervous? Sometimes, yes, but not always. Some children do not collapse inward when anxiety hits. They fight outward. They snap, argue, control, refuse, blame, shout, push back against everything. Not because they feel powerful, because they feel threatened. Think about what anxiety really is. At its core, anxiety is the body preparing for danger. Heart racing, muscles tight, breathing shallow, mind scanning, senses heightened, patience gone. That state is not designed for calm conversation, it is designed for survival. So if your child is flooded and you ask a normal question, they may hear pressure. If you remind them about homework, they may hear failure. If you say no, they may hear loss of control. If you look disappointed, they may hear rejection. And if they do not know how to say, "I feel overwhelmed right now," what comes out instead is anger. This is why the same child who seems rude at home may look fine at school, and that confuses parents even more. They think, how can my child hold it together all day and then explode with me? Because home is where the mask comes off. Home is where the effort crashes. Home is where all the swallowed stress finally demands a place to land. That does not make the behavior okay, but it does make it make sense. And when behavior makes sense, your response can change. A lot of childhood anger is not random. It follows patterns. The child who erupts every Sunday night before school, the child who gets mean right before a test, the child who starts a fight before a social event, the child who melts down when plans change, the child who seems furious when they cannot find the right clothes, the right words, the right answer. From the outside, it can look ridiculous. You think, how did we get from a missing shoe to a full emotional crisis? But the shoe was never the whole issue. The shoe was the final straw, the visible trigger, the surface spark. Underneath, it may be a child already carrying 10 invisible fears. What if I look stupid? What if nobody talks to me? What if I mess up? What if they laugh? What if I can't cope? What if I disappoint you? What if I disappoint myself? That pressure builds quietly. Then one small thing goes wrong, and out comes anger. Not because the shoe mattered more, because it was safer to explode over the shoe than admit how scared they already felt. This becomes even more common as children get older, especially in the digital age. Because today's children and teenagers are under pressure in ways that are hard to see from the kitchen table. They are not just managing school, they are managing visibility, social comparison, group chats, raid receipts, online silence, photos, likes, exclusion that leaves evidence, mistakes that can replay, conversations that never end. A child can carry social fear in their pocket all day long. They can look calm while their mind is on fire. Then you ask a simple question like, "How was school?" and they bite your head off. Not because they hate you, because they are hanging by a thread. That's why some of the angriest moments in families are actually moments in hidden fragility. But parents often miss this because anger triggers anger. That is the brutal cycle. Your child snaps, you feel disrespected, your body hardens, your voice changes. Now your child feels even less safe. Their anxiety rises higher, their anger gets bigger, and both of you end up reacting to the surface while the real feeling stays buried. Then later, when the house is quiet, the guilt arrives. Your child feels ashamed. You feel like you handled it wrong, and nobody talks about what was actually happening underneath. This is how families get stuck, not because there is no love, because everyone is reacting to protection instead of understanding pain. Let's be clear, seeing anxiety underneath anger does not mean giving children a free pass to be cruel. It does not mean there should be no limits. It does not mean every outburst is acceptable. It means consequences alone will not solve what fear is driving, because if anxiety is the engine and you only punish the smoke, the fire keeps burning. This is where parenting gets more psychologically demanding than most people expect. You have to listen to behavior without letting behavior dictate the whole story. You have to hold the boundary and still stay curious. You have to say, "You cannot speak to me like that," while also asking, "What is happening inside you right now?" That balance is hard, especially when you are tired, especially when you are already stressed, especially when your child's anger pokes at your own history. And for many parents, that part is huge, because a child's anger can stir up something old in you. Maybe you were not allowed to be angry as a child. Maybe anger in your home meant danger. Maybe tone instantly makes your body brace. Maybe disrespect was punished hard. Maybe you hear your child's voice rise and your nervous system stops hearing distress and starts hearing threat. That is real. And if that is happening, it does not mean you are a bad parent. It means your child's behavior is touching your own wiring, which is why this work is so hard. You are not just responding to your child. Sometimes you are responding to your child and to every unresolved feeling they awaken in you. That is why calm parenting sounds simple and feels impossible, because calm is not a script, it is a nervous system skill, and when two overwhelmed nervous systems collide, anger spreads fast. So what do you look for if you want to know whether your child's anger might actually be anxiety? Look for timing. Does the anger show up before school? Before sports? Before social events? Before bedtime? Before transitions? Before performance? Look for intensity. Is the reaction way bigger than the moment seems to justify? Look for control struggles. Does your child become explosive when they feel cornered, rushed, corrected, or uncertain? Look for avoidance. Do they fight hardest around the things they also seem to fear? Homework, presentations, sleepovers, team activities, haircuts, phone calls, new places, crowds, tests, even family gatherings. Look for the crash after. Do they seem ashamed, drained, tearful later, unable to explain themselves? That pattern matters, because truly aggressive behavior often seeks dominance. Anxiety-driven anger often leaves collapse behind it. The child is not satisfied after the explosion. They are spent, sometimes even scared by themselves. And this is where parents can make a life-changing shift. Instead of asking only, "How do I stop this behavior?" you begin asking, "What is this behavior protecting?" That question opens doors, because anger is often a bodyguard emotion. It steps in when something more vulnerable feels too dangerous to reveal. A child may not say, "I think everyone hates me." They may say, "I'm not going." A child may not say, "I'm scared I'll fail." They may say, "This is stupid." A child may not say, I feel out of control. They may scream because you changed the plan. A child may not say, I'm embarrassed. They may lash out because you asked about their day in the wrong tone. Once you start hearing the hidden message, the whole picture changes. Now the goal is not to win the power struggle. It is to decode the distress without surrendering the boundary. That may sound soft. It isn't. It is far harder than yelling back, because it requires you to stay grounded when your child is not. It requires you not to take the bait of the surface. It requires strength, the kind that does not always feel strong in the moment. So what does this sound like in real life? It sounds like, I can see you're overwhelmed. I'm not going to let you speak to me like that. Try again. It sounds like, you're really worked up right now. We'll deal with the issue, but first let's slow this down. It sounds like, I think something bigger is going on than this argument. It sounds like, you don't have to handle this alone, but I need you to talk to me without attacking. That kind of response does two things at once. It protects the relationship, and it protects reality. You are not rewarding the explosion. You are refusing to be fooled by it, and children need that, because many angry children are terrified by their own intensity. They need an adult who does not collapse, retaliate, or disappear. They need an adult who can hold the edge without becoming another threat. That does not mean you will always get it right. You won't. Some days you will snap back. Some days you will be too exhausted to decode anything. Some days your own anxiety will answer theirs. That is human. What matters is what happens next. Repair matters. Coming back matters. Saying, I don't like how that went. Let's try again matters. Because when children live in homes where hard moments can be repaired, they learn something powerful. They learn that emotions are survivable. That conflict is not the end of connection. That being overwhelmed does not make them bad. That feelings can be named, held, and understood. And that is especially important for anxious children, because anxiety already tells them the world is not safe. If every anxious explosion ends in shame and distance, the fear gets reinforced. But if the adult stays steady enough to see through the anger, the child slowly learns a new truth. I can be distressed without losing love. I can be dysregulated without becoming unworthy. I can tell the truth before I explode. I can ask for help before my body goes to war. That learning does not happen in one conversation. It happens over time, in repeated moments, in 100 small responses, in the tone you use after the outburst, in the questions you ask later, in whether your child feels studied or understood. Because children know when they are being managed, and they know when they are being seen. If you want to help an angry child who may actually be anxious, the work usually starts after the storm, not during it. During the storm, keep it simple. Safety, less talking, lower voice, clear limit, no lectures. After the storm, go gently, not like an investigator, not like a prosecutor, like someone helping them make sense of themselves. You might say, I noticed you got really upset before soccer. Was there something about going that felt hard? Or when I mentioned the test, it seemed like everything changed. What happened in your body right then? Or even, sometimes anger shows up first when we're stressed. Do you think that happens to you? These questions matter because many children do not yet know what they feel. They just know it arrives fast and takes over. If you can help them build language for the feeling under the anger, you are giving them a tool that will serve them for life. Not just, use your words, real words, cornered, embarrassed, pressured, left out, panicked, exposed, disappointed, scared, too much, not enough. Once a child can say, I felt stupid, they may not need to scream, you're so annoying. Once they can say, I thought everyone would judge me, they may not need to refuse the whole event with rage. Once they can say, I felt rushed and I panicked, the family can respond to the truth instead of just punishing the noise. And yes, sometimes a child's anger is just anger. Sometimes it is frustration, immaturity, boundary testing, learned behavior, disrespect that needs addressing. But when anger is frequent, explosive, out of proportion, tied to stress, or followed by collapse, anxiety deserves a closer look. Because if you misread fear as pure defiance for too long, your child may stop showing you the softer feelings entirely. They may decide you only respond to the performance, not the pain. And then the anger becomes the language of the relationship. That is what we want to interrupt, not just the behavior, the pattern, the misreading, the distance. Because beneath so much anger in children is a plea they do not know how to say clearly. Help me, slow down. Don't push me right now. I feel stupid. I feel trapped. I feel too much. I don't know how to do this. I need you close, but I don't know how to do this. I need you close, but I don't know how to let you close. That is why the angriest child in the room is so often not the most powerful one. They may be the most flooded, the most offended, the most scared of being seen as weak. And once you understand that, something shifts in you too. You stop taking every outburst as proof that your child is turning into someone hard. You start seeing a nervous system in distress, a child who still needs guidance, still needs limits, still needs accountability, but also still needs interpretation. Because children borrow their understanding of themselves from the adults raising them. If you call them bad, difficult, dramatic, disrespectful, that becomes part of their inner voice. If you help them see, you get sharp when you feel unsafe, that becomes a doorway. Now they are not a bad kid. They are a kid learning what happens to them under pressure. That difference can change everything. So the next time your child's anger fills the room, pause before you decide what it means. Ask yourself one brave question. What if this is not just anger? What if this is fear that lost its words? What if this is anxiety coming out sideways? What if the child in front of me does not need a bigger reaction from me, but a steadier one? You may still need to set a firm line. You may still need to end the argument. You may still need consequences. But if you can see the vulnerability beneath the fire, your response gets wiser, and wiser responses build safer children, not perfect children, children who never struggle, children who learn that when big feelings come, they do not have to hide behind anger forever. They can bring the real feeling into the light. And maybe that is one of the most important things a parent can offer, not just control, not just discipline, but the ability to look past the sharp edges and find the hurt underneath. Because sometimes the child who says, "I hate this," means, "I'm scared." Sometimes the child who yells, "Leave me alone," means, "Please don't make me explain what I can't even name." And sometimes the greatest shift in a family happens when one parent quietly realizes this. My child is not giving me a hard time. My child is having a hard time. And that one change in understanding can turn anger from a wall into a doorway to trust, a doorway to honesty, a doorway to deeper connection. And for a child living with hidden anxiety, that doorway can feel like rescue.